Hi, second graders. Welcome back. It's so good to finally be back with you guys after this long break. Um, we're going to be talking this week a little bit about perspective, which we started talking about that in reading, right? The eyes of the person that we see from. And before we were thinking about characters, like the characters in our books, like whose eyes do we see from? But this time, I don't want to talk about characters. I want to talk about real life people and real life, like things. Like, for example, we've been talking about maps, right? In social studies, we talked about maps. We made our own maps. We looked at different types of maps that other people make. And I actually want to show you at two maps. And these are two different perspectives of our world, okay? So remember our world map that has all the countries and continents in it? I'm going to show you two of them, and I want to see if you can see the difference. So as I show you the pictures, I want you to see what's different about these two, okay? So let me show you the first map. See, these are all the countries and their continents. Notice which ones are big, which ones are small. You can see South America looks kind of small. Africa looks kind of small. The United States, Canada, and look really big. So does Greenland and Russia and all these other countries. They look way bigger, right? Now let me show you another map that has a different perspective. We're seeing from someone else's eyes what it looks like, okay? So look at this one. Look, Africa is way bigger, way, way bigger. It's obviously the biggest one. South America is way bigger. The United States and Canada and Greenland, look how much smaller they are in this one. Same with Russia. Look how much smaller Russia is. And then all these other countries are way bigger than what it looks like in this map, right? These are two different perspectives. Why? Because one person made this map, and yes, the shapes are right. They made the shapes of every country to look how it's supposed to. But you know what they did? They wanted to make the countries that have more money and power, they wanted to make them bigger on the map, even though that's not actually how big they are. So you can see like the United States is huge. It's not actually as big as it's showing. It put Africa, the whole continent of Africa, it made it really small. But that's actually not even true, right? Yes, it's shaped like this, but it's way bigger than what it's showing. So this person's saying if you the powerful countries, we're going to make them look bigger so that everyone thinks they're more powerful and bigger. And then this map, they were like they made it so that it fit the size. This is really how big Africa is compared to the United States and all of North America. This is really how much bigger South America is, right? It's showing the actual size. The shape is a little off, so that's the difference. This one, the shape is not exactly right, but the size is right. So there's two different perspectives of the world. Um, I like to use this one because you get to see the real size of each continent. But also, we've talked about people, right? Um, so yes, maps can have different perspectives. We can see from different people's eyes what they think and feel about something. But we can also do that when we hear stories about people in history. And for example, there's this book called George Washington. So we're going to listen to this story about George Washington. He was our first president of the United States. But as I'm reading, I want you to think whose perspective, whose eyes do we not see from? Because you can tell we're probably going to see from the eyes of George Washington and people like him. And I'm going to talk about what we mean by people like him. So let me read this and we're going to see whose perspective we see from and whose perspective is missing. Okay, that's very important. So let's start. George Washington. George Washington was born in Virginia in 1732. At the time, Virginia was one of 13 colonies. The colonies belonged to the country of England. So we're talking about the United States here. The land of the country of the United States. There used to be only, you know how now we have 50 states? Well, there used to be 13 colonies. And I want us to stop right here. Even that fact, okay, that there was 13 colonies owned by England. Yes, England did own it, but were they really the first ones there? Were there really only 13 colonies in this land? Do you guys remember who was here first? The Native Americans. They were in this land first. There was way more than just 13 colonies. There were tribes with tons and tons of different Native people. So this is missing the perspective of the Native people who actually lived here, who really the land was theirs. So this book is only telling you one perspective. If I was to read a book from the Native American perspective, they would not say that there was just 13 colonies. They'd say, "Hey, these strange people are coming and taking our land. What's happening? We've been here for so long. What do you mean?" Let's keep reading where we see, uh-oh, the Native American perspective is not there. Young George grew up on a farm. He loved to ride horses and catch fish. George had many brothers and sisters. He looked up to his brother Lawrence. Lawrence was a soldier. He fought for England. George also wanted to be a soldier one day. George did not go to school. He was taught at home. George practiced his handwriting by copying rules of good manners in a book. At the age of 16, George went to live with Lawrence. Their farm was called Mount Vernon. George rode horses and hunted foxes. He danced at parties and practiced his good manners. He had never been happier. At the age of 17, George had a very important job. He measured land using special tools. The land of America was still new. The land of America was still new. Why would he say that the land of America was still new, when we know that Native American people had been living there for a very long time? So you have to think, who was it new for? It was new for people who were from England, who didn't know that the land existed. So we're seeing from their perspective. They're saying, oh, this new land, we need to explore it, right? But if you look in the eyes of the native people who've lived here, they're like, new land? This land has been here forever. We've been here for a very long time. So they would definitely not say it was a new land. They would say, this land has been here for a while. So it depends, whose eyes are you seeing the story from? From the people who came from England or the people who already lived here? So as you read books, I'm not going to finish this book. I just wanted to give you an example. So as you hear stories, I want you guys to be thinking, whose perspective is this from? And is there anyone missing from this story that should be there? These are things that as we learn about people in our world, we need to be thinking about those things, because sometimes we might think we know a story, but really it's missing something because we don't have the full perspective. We aren't seeing from other people's eyes. And so I thought for our activity to kind of practice doing this, I'm going to show you a picture. It's kind of a fun little picture. So here's you're at an aquarium, right? And if you see, we're kind of seeing from our own perspective, like as if we were standing at the front and we we're looking at all the animals, right? You can see this bridge with the animals on the top. We are human looking out at these animals. What you have to do is change the perspective. Who is missing? Can we see from someone else's eyes? So pick an animal in this picture, and I want you to draw a picture like you're looking through their eyes. So for example, I might decide you know what? I want to see from the eyes of this jellyfish. So I'm going to draw a picture of what it would look like for the jellyfish to be looking out. What would the jellyfish see? And I can draw a picture of what the jellyfish would see. So pick one of these characters or one of these animals and draw from their perspective. What would they see? So if I was the shark up here, I would probably see the floor on the bottom, right? Because I'm up here. I'd see the floor on the bottom. If I was the turtle, what would I see? I would see the grass down here because look, it's looking down. Okay, so pick one of these and see and draw what they would see, their perspective. So yeah, this picture shows one perspective, us looking at the animals. Now you have to think, what would their perspective be? What's something they would see? Okay, so that's what I want you to do on Seesaw. You can either do it on a piece of paper or you can do it on Seesaw on the drawing tool. Either way, you're going to draw what does one of these animals see? What is their perspective? Okay, guys, I can't wait to see what you guys draw.